Assalamu alaikum, everyone. Hopefully, you guys are all doing well. My name is Ahsan Rizvi. Let's get started with our second lecture of the series. For those of you who joined yesterday and are rejoining, thanks again for listening to me yesterday. For those of you who are joining for the first time today, I will give a quick recap of some of the important points that we discussed in the first session. We really went over basically we really went over the basic concepts of the holy month of Ramadan. What is the purpose of fasting? What is fasting? We also talked about how fasting is advantageous for us in terms of our spiritual journey and getting closer to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. um, so let me quickly go over that. Ramadan and Psalm, we discuss what those words actually literally mean. Ramadan is actually an Arabic word derived from the word Ramada, which means dryness or heat. The other one is Som, which is used for fasting. Som is an Arabic word as well, and it literally means to refrain from anything. And this is what we see when we are fasting. Basically, we are refraining ourselves from eating and drinking, which is really the basic concept. But we did learn yesterday that an enhanced way of fasting would be to protect all our faculties, which includes our hands, our eyes, our ears, and our legs, from sinning, and protecting them, and then making sure that they are only used and utilized for the pleasure of Allah. What is fasting? As we already all know, fasting is obligatory, has been prescribed upon us by Allah. Every adult Muslim is supposed to fast in the month of Ramadan. We do not, while we are fasting, we refrain from eating and drinking throughout the entire day from dusk till dawn. And then there are obviously some exceptions for people who are travelers, for people who are sick, who are old, elderly. If they're not able to fast, obviously they are exempted from this requirement. If you are unable to do so, although there are some other conditions as well, if you're not able to fast, um, due to some other reasons, like maybe you're traveling on a work trip or something like that, then there are conditions. And hopefully, if we have time, we will be discussing some of those situations and conditions as well, and the rules around that. Purpose of fasting, as we discussed, it was there are lots of benefits, lots of advantages, but we did go over verse number 183 and verse number 185 of Surah Baqarah, which is chapter number 2 of the Holy Quran, in which Allah said that one of the reasons that fasting has been made obligatory on us, is to gain piety, to become God wary, and to become God fearing. Other reasons are obviously discipline. It makes us learn self discipline when we are showing restraint, when we are limiting ourselves, and when we are restricting ourselves for food during the day, uh, and when we are waking up in the middle of the morning. Right, all these things basically ensures that we are disciplining ourselves. And then last but not the least, it's a great way of cleansing ourselves, purifying our soul, enhancing our spirituality uh, in this month. As we all know, in the holy month of Ramadan, even the slightest and smallest actions have tremendous rewards. That's why we often see people around us, Muslims around us, they tend to recite Quran as much as possible, because any recitation that you do has great rewards compared to other days. So with that, I think this was a quick recap of what we discussed in session one. Obviously, if you have questions or any comments, please feel free to contact Babul Ilm. The contact information is there on WhatsApp groups and on their website. So for today's series, like I said, we will be discussing a few things about the importance of the month of Ramadan, and also some of the conditions that will tell us like what kinds of conditions are there, when you are exempted from fasting, and what kinds of conditions are there when you are not exempted and when you have to do something. If you do miss a fast, then you have to do something in return as a penalty or as a replacement. Before we get on with that, I wanted to mention that there is this Sahifa Sajadia. It's a book, but it's a book which is basically a collection of all the du'as and supplications that has reached us by Imam Zainul Abidin al Islam, our fourth Imam. And there is this one particular dua, which is dua number 44, in which Imam Zainul Abidin al Islam is actually praying to Allah and talking about the importance of holy month of Ramadan. So I'm gonna uh, first let you guys listen to the Arabic, and then we'll go over the translation.
والحمد لله الذي جعل من تلك السبل شهرا، شهر رمضان، شهر الصيام، وشهر الإسلام، وشهر الطهور، وشهر التمحيص، وشهر القيام الذي أنزل فيه القرآن هدى للناس وبينات من الهدى والفرقان.
From Sahifa Sajadia, and basically, I'm going to be reading the translation. These are five statements, five verses from that dua. Imam Zainul Abidin says, "And praise belongs to God who appointed among those roads His month, the month of Ramadan." So basically, it starts off praising Allah Ta'ala and saying that basically the month of Ramadan was actually appointed by the Lord for the month as the month of fasting. And why was it appointed? Why was this month appointed? He goes on and says, the month of fasting, the month of submission, the month of purity. So these are the things that we discussed as well. And it's good to see that it's in Sahifa Sajjadiyah. And then he goes on and says, the month of putting to test, the month of standing in prayer. Some of the key things that we always see Muslims do. Um, Obviously, it's a great test. You are actually uh, putting yourself at some sort of an unease. You're refraining from eating and drinking. So physically, you are testing yourself, and then you're also praying in that condition, right? So it's a great test, and it basically tests or builds your patience and tolerance. He then says, in which the Quran was sent down as guidance to the people. So we also know that Quran was actually revealed upon the Holy Prophet in this month, which makes it even more sacred. And finally, he says, and as clear signs of the guidance and the separator. So we should always see anything that we see, we should always consider and ponder upon it, whether it is actually taking us towards Allah. Is it telling us anything about the creator of this entire universe? So Imam Sajjad actually says in this line number 12 that the holy month of Ramadan is a clear sign, it's a clear manifestation of the existence of Allah. We also talked about it yesterday, when you see that despite having so much control, despite having money, despite having resources and accessibility to food and drinks and everything like that, you restrict yourself. And sometimes when you're doing things, when you're going through that situation, you do feel that helplessness that if Allah has ordained you to not eat anything from dusk to dawn for consecutive 30 days, you're not doing it, and then you feel like there is some great entity, some great power out there who's controlling you, who's supposed to be obeyed, and you are basically submitting your will to Allah. So Alhamdulillah, it's a great task, and people who actually experience the holy month as it's supposed to be, experience do are able to cleanse and purify their soul and enhance their spirituality. So, like I said, we will be talking about some of the terminologies around fasting. And I think these are some basic terminologies that everyone should be aware of. We often hear them, and I think it's always good to know what they mean, because you never know if you can if you encounter such a situation in your own life. So three main terminologies really. One is kaza, number two is fidya, and the third one is kafara. So we'll talk about kaza first. Kaza is basically uh, makeup fasting or deferring or postponing your fast. Now, can you do it all the time? No, obviously. Who can do it? There are certain conditions. For example, one of the most common condition is that, let's say, you work in a company and now you have to go out on a work trip. So when you go out, you're not supposed to, fasting is not obligatory on you when you're traveling. There are obviously other conditions as well, like how long is the travel for? Are you going after Zohar or before Zohar? Um, uh, are you what is the how many days are you going to be staying at the destination? So all these things are the details of it, and we can actually go over as well. The next one is obviously fidya. Fidya is compensation. Basically, there are other conditions. So, for example, if you fall sick and it's something not it's not a chronic disease, it's just, let's say, an infection or a flu or a cough, and you're not able to fast, then you simply have to compensate for that. And the amount is 750 grams of rice. So basically, you give it out to poor people, and then that would be your compensation for your one fast that you missed because of your sickness or illness in the month of Ramadan. Now, the third one is called kafara. Kafara is a fine or a penalty for a missed fast. If you were fine, if you were not sick, but you were not able to, but you did not fast intentionally, then this is where it comes into play. And obviously, because it's somewhat of a penalty, it's actually of a higher amount compared to fidya, which is a simple compensation, right? It is a 45 kilogram of rice and should be distributed for every missed or skipped fast. This 45 kilogram of rice should be distributed to the poor. Now let's go and look at the conditions around all these three terminologies, all these three situations. Obviously, they are distinguished by the reason for not fasting. So on the left side, you can see the reason for not fasting. What it says is, okay, old age. If you are old, elderly, and you're not able to fast at all because your health would be in jeopardy, then you don't have to do anything. So this basically really tells us how Islam is very practical in nature, how Islam actually does not want you to put yourself in harm's way. It's a religion of peace. It's a religion which is very, very practical in nature. So if you're not able to, then you're not even supposed to do any kaza, fidya, or kafara. The next thing is old age. You're still old, but you can and let me tell you, the source of this chart is actually al-m.ca. It's a website where we have the material from Maulana Rizvi, so you can go there and look for the material in detail as well and read it in your own time. So anyways, the second one is you are old, but you can fast, but it will be difficult for you. In that case, you can obviously you have an option available to skip fast, but you'll have to do fidya. And from the previous slide, we know that fidya is basically giving out 70-50 grams, less like, so like 3-4 quarters of a kilogram, or 750. Let me just see, 750 grams. Yeah, so 3/4, 3/4 of a kilogram of rice to the poor. Temporary illness is the third one. If you have, like we discussed, you skipped it because you were sick, you had a cough or a cold or something like that, and you are, then you're supposed to do a kaza, which is that postponing your fast. So let's say you missed two because you were sick in the month of Ramadan, then you should fast for 2 days after that month, but it should be within that year. So if it's within that year, then the kaza is fine and you don't have to do anything. But if it's that's not the case, then you also have to do the fidya. So there's this is where the complication or like an additional thing that you have to do comes in. Um, if you're not able to do qada within a year, then you have to do fidya as well, which is again 750 grams of rice. Long-term illness, you can see fidya is fine. Pregnancy, nursing a child, and then traveling. Now, traveling, I think, is more. It's very common. It's a very common scenario for most of us. Oftentimes, we go out for our work during the month of Ramadan, and we don't really know whether we have to do qada, fidya, or kafara. So let's go over like some of the conditions that we see. So if you travel to a destination before Zohar and you leave your destination, your home before Zohar, then you do have to do qada. But if you do that after Zohar, then you can fast normally as you normally would. Now, uh, the third one is where there's another condition is that where if you're going to a destination and your stay at that destination would be less than 10 days, then again you have to do qada. So you cannot fast normally because your stay is uh, less than 10 days. So I should mention that for the first two, which is traveling starting before Zohar and starting after Zohar, this travel is talking about the journey where you're actually coming back the same day. Okay. And it's basically not talking about how much your stay would be at the destination. The third one is obviously staying at the destination less than 10 days. If it's less than 10 days, then you do qada. So you will not fast and you will do the qada, which means you'll keep those fasts after the month is over, and you'll simply do the qada. The fourth one is obviously if your duration of your stay is actually more than 10 days, then you actually will fast normally. And number five is frequent traveler. So this is also an important one. I feel like a lot of people are frequent travelers, and they're like, would it be qada? Would it be fidya or what? So basically, it's just normal because it's a set routine already for you. You are traveling on a daily basis for work. This will be, excuse me, this will be a normal condition for you, and you are required to fast normally. Now, obviously, the final reason, I guess, that we want to talk about is negligence. If you skip a fast, if you break, or you're not able to fast due to negligence, um, examples could be anything. You just don't feel like fasting or something of that sort. Then you will have to do qada. So that means you will have to keep you will have to fast after the month of Ramadan for those missed number of fasts, and then also do the kafara for each of the skipped ones. Those kafara would be like a penalty, like a fine. And as you can see, the column of kafara, which is fine or penalty, has only one check here, which is only when you miss a fast due to negligence. There's no other reason for which you are told to basically pay a kafara. All right. So I think traveling has been discussed here. Again, these are some of the key points. If you are going before Zohar, do qada. After Zohar is you just normally you fast normally, and then again the staying at destination before less than 10 days and greater than 10 days. We've already discussed it. The duration of stay is less than 10 days, and do qada if it's greater than 10 days. Then fast normally. Now, so I guess those were some of the key things that I guess we should be aware of, and I wanted to make sure that we have some idea. Obviously, if you have more questions, if you are specific scenarios, you can always go to your resident alim. Babalim has a great scholar as well, Maulana Anis, and you can obviously submit your questions to him. He's available during the entire month of Ramadan and even after. And make sure you make him aware of your situation, of your particular situation, and you can get a very good answer as well on what you need to be doing. Um, we can actually go on to the next segment of this session, which is really the importance of Ramadan, or how should we be preparing ourselves in this month? What should we be doing? We know so many things we've seen from the Holy Quran itself. We have seen from the Hadiths. We have seen from traditions, and now we've also seen from Sahifa Sajadiya, a book, a compilation of du'as of Imam Zainul Abidin alayhi salam. We've seen how important and blessed and sacred this month is. So how should we be ready? How can we play our part, play our role, um, to purify ourselves, to cleanse ourselves, right? Some of the things that I thought would be valuable to every one of us are listed on the slide. Number one is enthusiasm, right? Anything that you want to accomplish, anything that you want to do, you need to make sure that you're determined to do it, and you have to have that enthusiasm. You have to have that passion and excitement. If you don't have that, you probably would not feel like doing it, and you probably won't go anywhere, if even if you're doing things ritually. If things are just ritual in nature, you might get some benefit, because those rituals or those practices in itself uh, are blessed, but it will not, definitely not have the full impact that it's supposed to have. So do make sure that you can induce yourself that enthusiasm. Some of the key activities, why how you can actually induce that, inculcating yourself though that enthusiasm is by reading Quran, by studying the nature of the month of Ramadan in our traditions, in the Holy Quran itself, in the Sirah of our 12 Imams. Number two is Quran. Um, Quran is very, very important. As we already know, Quran was revealed on this month. The recitation of Quran itself, the Arabic script, has tremendous value and importance. Obviously, it's actually even more useful when you are reading, let's say, the translation and trying to understand it. But that's like a level two, right? A level three would be to go and implement those lessons that you have learned from the Quran and then implement them in your practical life. So those are like the three stages I would think that we should actually prepare ourselves for. But definitely start from reading Quran. If you cannot read it every single day throughout the year, definitely make it a point that you read at least one chapter, one verse of the Quran on a daily basis, and start from the month of Ramadan. Hopefully this will become a habit, and you'll eventually do it throughout the year as well. The third one is determination to avoid sins. Um, Obviously, as we saw, as we discussed, it's not just refraining from food and water. It's not just that. It's not just restricting yourself from eating and drinking. It's much more than that. It's beyond that. Fasting, Allah Ta'ala does not want Muslims to just not to stop eating for no reason. He has prescribed this for a reason, which we already discussed, was piety, right? Um, and how can that be done? You have to make a resolution to yourself, to Allah, that you will not just stop yourself from eating and drinking, but you will also stop yourself and your faculties from doing any kinds of sin, or any kind of activity, indulging in any kind of activity that will actually take you away, further away from Allah, should not be done. I guess a better enhanced level of that would be that you're not even thinking about sinning, let alone sinning. You're not even doing anything that you think might. ethically or unethically might take you further away from Allah. So haram and halal, obviously haram thing should not be done at all. There's no question about it. But you should also be mindful of how you can actually even refrain from those activities that you think might even distance yourself from Allah. So just to enhance your spiritual level, because in our daily lives after Ramadan, we probably don't even think of these things. But this is a good time to start thinking and wrapping your head around these things so that you can actually uh, hopefully build a spiritual level that can bring you closer to Allah. And last but not the least, desire to help others. It's important. Hakukul Allah and Hakukul Ibad go side by side. Allah Ta'ala has actually created us to help others. We are here to support. Right now, we have a current situation of COVID. We should be mindful of how people might be suffering from the situation. So we should always have that innate desire to assist others in times of their need. We should be selfless and we should be ready to sacrifice our needs and our pleasures for others, and that's just not for Muslims or your family members or your friends, but you should extend the same level of courtesy, the same level of regard to everyone out there, be it your neighborhoods. Islam has a lot of emphasis and rights for each of these specific groups. We should be mindful of how we are respectful towards our parents, how we are um, positive towards our neighbors, um, how we are kind towards people who are probably not kind to us, right? It's probably easy to be kind to people who are already kind to us, but it's very hard to actually be nice to someone who's actually very cross at you or is very harsh with you. I will conclude with one story, a quick story of Imam Zainul Abidin, because it demonstrates how he had a desire to help others, or he had like a special intention in the month of Ramadan to do good to others, right? So Imam Zainul Abidin had servants, and whenever they would make mistakes, what Imam Zainul Abidin during the month of Ramadan, especially, what he would do is he would write them down and record them in his notebook that okay, this servant made a mistake today, but he would not say anything to him at that time. No, so he would do it during the entire month, and after the month is over, he would actually call them, like call the servant up, and then tell him, okay, these were the mistakes that you actually did during the entire month, but I forgive you. I would not say anything to you because this is a month of Ramadan. So basically, Imam Zamla Dunya Islam through this story is actually role modeling and telling us that do something extra, have some extra care for others in need or who are around you, so you can actually elevate yourself and your spirituality in this holy month. That's it for now. Thank you so much for being here and watching the video. And I think hopefully we will see you next week. And thanks again for listening to me. Allah Hafiz.